Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. So, the House had a meaningless vote, so there's some kind of hope in what I'm about to give you. They have banded together and got a vote 219 to 210 against the pistol brace ban. Now, this still would have to go through the Senate and then land on Biden's desk. The chances of it passing in the Senate are nil. Just because we know who has the majority in the Senate. And Biden has already said that he would veto this once it comes out. But I was informed, after doing some snooping, that we should have some other things to be very, very happy about in the 2A community. Guess who Joe Biden has made the czar of gun control? Basically, this person is going to be in charge of it and made to make it happen. Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, that sounds like, okay, what? Why is that a positive thing? Think about this lady's track record. You've seen what's happened on the southern border. She was the czar of the border. That hasn't worked out so well, has it? Anything this lady has ever been put in charge of under this administration has been an absolute S show. It sucked. There is great hope that if she's put in charge of the anti-gun movement or the, get gun control, more gun control, that there's probably not going to get very much movement if there's any movement at all. So in the passing of the stuff and House Bill, I think it's 444 or 448 or something like that. It's a House Bill about the pistol braces. The pistol brace rule will be overturned if it were to go to the Senate. Now, that's cool. One of the people, there was a lot of, you need to check out the C-SPAN votes stuff for that, because there's a lot of back and forth. And Nadler, who's, I think, in California, he's a rep from California, he was made to look like a complete idiot. And it went farther and farther. More and more of them were made to look like complete idiots. That's because they are under some weird fantasy that a pistol brace somehow adds to a firearm to make it fully automatic and more lethally functional. When we all know that a pistol brace does neither of those. At bare minimum, it makes the gun a little better to handle. It might have made it a little more compact. That was part of the draw. But in reality, it's not anything that is a big deal. I say this because I'm more enthused by the fact that less than 1% have complied. That's what they're stating now. It's coming out from the House and the Senate when they're doing their little ways and means to check and see what actual stuff happens. The math is coming in, and it's showing that less than 1% actually complied. This is how we win. In the news today, you see that Trump was indicted again. What the left is doing is turning Trump into a martyr. And I'm even seeing people that aren't political going, this is a little bit of a witch hunt. I'm also seeing the leftists, the guys that are really doubling down, and saying that Trump's such an evil, bad dude. They're cheering for this. What they don't understand is exactly what I just said. You're making him a martyr. I would like to have seen a change of the guard completely. I'm tired of kind of seeing geriatric old men run our country. It's time for something a little newer. I don't know if DeSantis would be the guy. I honestly would lean more to Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm one of those 2% guys that's actually looked at his policies and seen what kind of stuff he's willing to do for the economy, and he's already a leader in the economic stance. He's taking on BlackRock and other dudes trying to set up an anti-woke financing firm similar to BlackRock but more conservative. Again, I still have some conservative leanings. The economy is kind of one of those things. I was surprised that, well, not really surprised. I've been checking out Peter Zeihan. I have been for years now, and he's saying that the independents are going to go remarkably for Biden, and I think that's comic. And I say that because I have talked to enough of my lefty friends, and they are classical liberal. That's why I think we can still be friends. And when they talk about Biden, it's with disgust, and it's with, oh crap, what did we do? And we're seeing cultural wins all over the place. You know, Starbucks is tearing down their LGBT, their pride stuff. I'm not saying that's a win. It's just interesting that if you put enough pressure monetarily on companies, we're seeing them back away. And that's always been the case. You know, you've heard me advocate for this often. Vote with your dollar. Spend money with people that don't hate you. And that's kind of impossible. But what you can do is spend like 60 or 50% or even 80% on anything you buy. Make sure it's on a company that just doesn't hate you. Support those creators, support those industries, support those small businesses that you know are grateful for what you give them. You know, we live in a day and age where we're going to have to band in closer and tighter. I see so many wins in the 2A space where a lot of people don't, and that's just because I'm trying to be more optimistic. The sad fact of the matter is, though, is if the courts don't step up to enforce this stuff in some way, some shape or form, they will get away with it. The Biden administration will get away with it, stripping American rights. They did this during COVID until the Supreme Court finally said, you cannot do this, and then the FBI kind of backed them a little bit. We need that same thing to happen, and it looks like, you know, the dark side of that is, you know, there's enough turncoats there that won't do what is correct, what is right, what has been proven in the courts time and time again, and that's the right that self-defense is universal. If you're an American citizen, it's guaranteed. It doesn't matter what device. You've seen comics. I've seen people on Twitter lately going off on the Second Amendment, and what they're going off on is they're like, you can't beat the American military. You're absolutely right. But you also have to understand how many of those American military dudes, now I say this with some bated breath, would actually line up and kill American citizens. You know, I would hope there's a lot of them. Most of them joined to be patriotic and defend us. So I would think that there's going to be, especially some of the old salty dogs that are still in, they're not going to go along with this. You know, there will be a point in time. And what they don't understand, these people that think that we can't defeat the American military, is it's already happened in other places. Vietnam was a prime example up until recently. But you can say Afghanistan and Iraq are the newest examples. You know, these guys had AKs and sand, and they managed to kick our ass out of those countries. Yeah, it took a long time, but they did it. They even went to using IEDs. And one of these comics or one of these guys on Twitter was talking about how it was only until they started using IEDs would we defeat the American military. I think that if the American military ever was uncorked on the American people, it would create such a bad taste in any followers that they have right now that it would cause a pushback. Now, I say this because it's different than COVID. When you actually see lethal, strikes, and you're killing a lot more civilians than you are the bad dudes, so to say, that will resonate with the people. It has in every other country we've ever done. That's what starts the resistance against us, specifically in Afghanistan and Iraq. We had the Taliban, and then we had what's it called, ISIS or ISIL or whatever. There's a billion different names for them, but I think we all know them colloquially as ISIS. And it wasn't until you got people in that were a little more patriotic that went after ISIS's throat, so to speak, and killed them all and disbanded them to a degree, but there's still a strong contingent of them in Syria. You look at this stuff, and it doesn't take too much of a jump in imagination to think what would happen here. There's a lot of us that have wanted to be left alone, and they've stayed out of the political landscape, unlike me, where I jumped headfirst into this, knowing full well what kind of blowback could hit me. And that's fine. I mean, I'm 45. I've lived my life fairly well. There's a couple other things I want to do, and I'm working hard to get there to do that. But other people, you talk about some of those Korean and Vietnam vets that, yeah, they're old and they're a little surly and a little slower, but you put them up against in weird places doing weird stuff in the United States, that's kind of an effective army. And you're seeing these cultural wins because people are fed up. How many years has the pride thing been a thing? And it's just this year, this June, that you're seeing such harsh pushback. And it's because people are finally waking up. They're realizing that slippery slope that everybody talked about is actually a cliff. I've said that before too. We're getting to that place in society where people are unwillingly waking up and seeing the situation that they're in. Most of my listeners, I don't have a lot of you, but most of you guys are informed enough to know I'm speaking the truth. I can make a mistake, and sometimes you guys will answer back and tell me, hey, this is wrong. I love that because there's some interaction there. But I've also learned from my listeners that, they gave me more information on something. Case in point, I showed the bullpup conversion for the AR-15 from, I think it's Reap Weapons. And this guy gave all this down low on what you needed to make this gun work if you were really interested in it. And that's cool. I mean, that's wicked cool that my listeners are actually going to interact like that with me and to the other listeners in the group, because if there are people interested in this, that's something that they would probably want to know. But in the political space, I'm probably preaching to the choir in a lot of ways. You probably just like my commentary, or you're just supporting me because you know me personally. Either way, thank you. But we look at this political argument, and it's dead to us. This has been a decision that was made, when they coined the Bill of Rights. But we're always consistently having to fight this fight. It makes us kind of eager to jump into the other fights. I've seen one of my really good friends jump into the LGBTQ rainbow stuff heavy against it this year. I think it took COVID, and it took just enough is enough for this guy to just start doing stuff, start coming out swinging hard against institutions that I know he once loved. And I think that's because enough's enough. There's enough of us in society now that have said, we're kind of tired of this. We've asked you to back off. We've asked you to stay away from this stuff. You keep pushing it. You keep pushing it. Now you're involving kids. That's a hard stop. Now we have a real problem. And as we keep talking about the 2A and them trying to pass these unconstitutional laws like the pistol brace ban, which is backdoor gun control, and noncompliance and mass noncompliance, that's what it's going to take to have to win. You can't listen to Kamala Harris's alphabet soup when she talks about the school bus and take her any close to serious. That's the best way to put that. The lady is nuts, and she was put there because she checked a box probably in the Biden administration's mind. And that shows the level of care and respect they have for us, because she's one heartbeat away from being the president of the United States. And I can't imagine her being able to make a decision that would affect the world, basically, because she can't make a decision, and she can't even make appearances where she needs to be just to give support. I don't think she's ever been to the border, and if she has, it's probably been once. And the reason why that is because it's one of their biggest failures. You can't look at the difference between Trump and Biden and say this has gotten better. That's one of the things that they were supposed to have fixed. And absolutely, it's not fixed. We have a problem now worse than we ever did. On the other fronts where we're winning is the economy wins, I should say, is there's a mall, a mega mall, closing in downtown San Francisco. And what has actually happened is the mall owners have given it back to the bank, saying this is economically unfeasible. You know, as crime rates go up and people start fighting back or seeing that type of stuff in real livid color, then they start taking actions, and then they start seeing change. You know, this is about what I think was happening in the early 80s when the crack epidemic started hitting here. We're seeing that with fentanyl now. And we're seeing the crime increase in larger cities, specifically around, you know, shoplifting and the reforms they did during COVID where they weren't enforcing the law. And now they're having to pay the piper. Again, you let that happen and play forward. They hit the gas on the stupid level, and they're going to hit the brick wall. They're going to hit the brick wall at 120 miles an hour, and they're going to go everywhere. So I think we're going to see in the next election, hopefully, a watershed moment where people start looking more at who they're voting for, not just an R, not just a D, looking and seeing what they actually stand for, because it's becoming increasingly apparent that's something we have to pay attention to. For people like me, most of you guys probably have done that already. Some of us, you know, I have a friend that listens religiously who's an amazing person. The fact that they swung libertarian the last election, I understand, but it was probably the one time we had a shot to make any kind of difference in New Mexico, to make this guy not be there. That said, I understand having enough conscience to say, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I did that the first time Trump ran, because I was pretty adamant this wasn't the guy. And I was definitely more adamant that Hillary wasn't the guy that needed to be running our country. You know, you can't see, like I said, the two-tiered justice system last night or this morning. You can't see it continually without being pissed off about it, you know, and looking at this stuff and going, what would happen if that was me? You know, what if I had to use my weapon to defend myself? Am I living in a good enough place or a good enough state that that's actually going to be acceptable? New Mexico, I believe we'd still be safe. Despite what a lot of people think, we have a lot more conservatism here. It's kind of hidden because you even have those leftists that vote Democrat all the time that will cross the aisle. And you see it. You see it in weird places. You look at the rural areas, the rural counties. They're definitely ran by conservatives. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but I think we have the potential in New Mexico to reverse this place before it becomes California. The Californication is happening. That is for sure happening. You can't look at Albuquerque, you can't look at the jobs reports in New Mexico or the education and go, it's getting better in New Mexico. But it's going to take that failure for people to wake up. And it's sad because you can yell and scream at the wall trying to get people to see the train coming, and they won't act until the train's they're right on the tracks. And you're like, damn it, I tried to warn you. I don't want to go out here to help you, but we're going to get this shit done. We got to pull everything back. And that's what I think is happening in New Mexico. I'd like to see the rural states rise up more and say, no, enough's enough. And we're seeing it with people passing the petition around now about all the stuff that was passed in the last House session that's kind of against kids. That is an initiative that could actually take off and grow wings. And that's something that I have seen in the 2A world. We've tried to try to impeach our governor. And we have this one thing in New Mexico where the House Speaker has to be amicable to that idea, and they weren't. So it was firmly rejected. You get enough of this stuff, enough angry parents pissed off, where parents are seeing this stuff, and they will fight back, and that's what needs to happen. Society needs to see that. All this strife that we're seeing, where people are waking up and saying, no, not with kids, and they're actually balling up their fist and getting into fights like in California, the Armenians, that's good for us because it draws attention to these guys being idiots. And the sooner everyone comes to that realization, which we came to a long time ago, the better it is for all of us. Like, share, subscribe, be great.
In the top, I can't let it slide. My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought that I ain't